I'm standing where the devil once stood. I always wanted to say that.
Our story begins at the Devil's Pulpit, a strange rock above the River Wye in southeast Wales, only a few miles upstream from Chepstow. On a clear day, obviously unlike this day, you have a breathtaking view of Tintern Abbey from up here. The rock itself looks outworldly. It stands alone as if put here by some giant, and it has the strangest marks on top. Legend tells us they are the devil's footprints.
When exactly, though, he stood on this outcrop of limestone, legend doesn't tell us. It must have been after AD 1131, the year when Tintern Abbey was founded. He stood here and had a bit of a rant down towards the abbey about the error of monastic ways and tried to convince the monks that they should join his philosophy instead. Apparently, he was unsuccessful.
Tintern Abbey, or rather the ruins of it, is what we came here to see today. But before we go down there, we should take a look at the other famous landmark just behind us, Offa's Dyke.
King Offa ruled the kingdom of Mercia from AD 757 to 796, a period of nearly 40 years. Phenomenally long, even by today's standards. It has been said that the process of merging the separate kingdoms into a unified England started under his rule. But most historians today agree that that's pushing it a bit. It really was Alfred the Great, 100 years later, who should be credited with that process. It is undisputed that the great earthwork we are walking on here, Offa's Dyke, had been commissioned by that long-ruling king. What is in serious doubt, though, is that it reached from sea to sea, all the way from the Severn estuary to up what is now Liverpool, thus providing a seamless border between then Mercia and Wales.
There may have been parts constructed even by the Romans. Others may have been built hundreds of years later, but the name we give it today is justified. The exact function, however, remains unclear. As a proper defence structure, it would never have been formidable enough. A ditch and earth wall just 20 metres wide and 2.5 metres high. But it certainly made a powerful statement towards the Welsh, that crossing here brings you into the realm of one mighty king.
I know that on film later this is really difficult to see, but to my eye as I'm walking along here, it is absolutely beyond any doubt that I'm walking along a very old man-made dike structure.
Let's go down to the Abbey. In the 19th century, when Tintern Abbey became a romantic tourist attraction, people often approached it by boat, coming along the River Wye. In many travel reports you can read how impressive people found it when the ruins suddenly appeared on the side of the river. It is every bit as impressive today.
If you don't happen to live close to Tintern Abbey and visit it regularly as a local landmark, you may remember it only from depictions of 19th century romantic artists. Perhaps the famous picture of all is the watercolour done by William Turner in 1794.
Today it looks totally different. All the plant growth has been removed and the structural work, such as it survives, has been laid bare and been preserved. It looks less romantic now, but If you know what ivy and roots can do, you will agree that this is better if we wanted to survive through the coming centuries.
Tintern Abbey was founded in AD 1131 by the Cistercian order. At the time it was the first in Wales and only the second in all of Britain, after Waverley in what is now Surrey. What dominates our view today is a later expansion. The magnificent Gothic church we see today was finished around 1300.
On the way around the precinct we find this plaque, commemorating the first time brass was, let's say, consciously produced by alloying copper and zinc. Whether the date of 1586 holds up to any historic scrutiny I cannot say. Two things though. That date is only 50 years after the Dissolution, and already industrial processes were playing an important role up here. And the industrial period apparently contributed a lot to the decay of the masonry at Tintern Abbey. Today it is hard to believe that this tranquil place was once filled with noxious fumes and hammering and smeltering. Entrance to the grounds is through the ticket office and shop, and I would say skip the gifts but buy the big guidebook. It's worth every penny at £4.50. I've said it before. These sites and museums are generally very well done in the UK, and Tintern Abbey is no exception. If you multiply the £8.70 entrance fee with the visitors you see, and think of the humongous effort needed to preserve the place, you realise just how much it all must be subsidised. This is the long version of saying, go there now, buy the book and have a good look around. You won't be sorry. The Pulpit was an ornament stone screen across the nave of the church. Fragments of it are exhibited in the tent on your left as you enter the grounds. It used to give the praying monks in the eastern part of the church some privacy. In this photograph, from around 1860, the foundation is still in its original place. We are looking at the drains below the latrine here. The drains traverse the entire abbey from east to west and connect it to any area producing waste. The water level could be raised with sluice gates to control the flow. Abbeys like this were much less smelly places than other human dwellings in those days. Up and south from here towards our left is where the monks' dormitory now no longer is. We can see the upper floor door into the church and where the roof was connected.
Who were the Cistercians anyway? To understand how they came about, we have to have a look into how monastic life was structured all those centuries ago. It was Benedict of Nursia who, in the early 6th century, compiled a set of rules, rather strict, but generally embraced.
Monks had to live a life of prayer and moderation. The times for prayer were strictly regulated, and time was set aside for manual labour, another important cornerstone. As monasteries grew successful, and those rules had the tendency to make that probable, they grew richer and, with time, less inclined to follow the ideals of poverty and devotion to the letter. Some monks grew more and more unhappy about this. In AD 910, a first attempt was made to turn the clock back a bit. The great French Abbey of Cluny insisted on a stricter following of the rules of St. Benedict. And they grew quite successful. By the end of the 11th century, they had hundreds of affiliated houses all over Europe. But, as we say, there's no pleasing some people. The monks of Cluny were a very aristocratic club, and that made, among others, one Robert de Molesme so unhappy that in 1098 he took off with 24 mates and founded yet another new abbey. He chose a place far from civilization, in a marshy and forestry place a bit south of Dijon. There he started a new order that wanted to finally get it right.
Today we call that place Cîteaux, and the monks of that order Cistercians. They were fantastically successful. Within the first 50 years of their existence, they expanded their order to about 300 monasteries in all of Europe.
Several factors, and indeed people, contributed to that success. One outstanding personality was that of Bernard of Clairvaux, the rock star of monks in the 12th century. Like no other, he used his devotion, charisma and influence to carry the Cistercian idea into the world. Generally, if monasteries were your thing, living in the 12th century was a good idea. It was a culturally revolutionary time. Now, I don't want to call the next 400 years uneventful, but as far as Tintern was concerned, you might be forgiven to fast forward a bit. Lots of details, but no horror stories. Over time, the abbey acquired more land and consequently more income, and with a Cistercian strict approach to austerity being gradually more relaxed over time, buildings became more elaborate and, from today's point of view, more interesting. Roger Bigod, Earl of Norfolk and Lord of Chepstow, greatly contributed to the abbey's fortunes and helped finance the completion of the new Gothic church. This building, begun in 1269 and finished in 1301, gives Tintern Abbey the iconic look we know today. The remains of the refectory still has some of the magnificent window arches in place on the eastern side. At mealtime, and that mostly was only lunch, the monks would be sitting on benches either side of the large dining room. A hatch in the southwestern corner connected the refectory directly to the kitchen. Winter must have been seriously unpleasant for our Cistercians here, at least by today's standards. Apart from the kitchen and the infirmary, only the warm room here had a fire. The monks were allowed to come here for short periods to warm up when they were utterly freezing.
The devil, we have learned, failed to dislodge the monks when he was praying from that stone up the hill. 400 years later, the defender of the faith succeeded. In 1536, the monks of Tintern Abbey had to surrender their premises to the men of the king. All treasure went into the royal coffers. The abbot was pensioned off, and any other assets were sold, including the lead of the church roof, which set in motion the decay we can see here now. What a formidable structure it must have been to have survived wind and weather for that long now, come to think of it.
Nor wilt thou then forget that after many wanderings, many years of absence, these steep woods and lofty cliffs, and this green pastoral landscape, were to me more dear, both for themselves and for thy sake. So wrote William Wordsworth in his 1798 Lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey.